I've been a little bit slack on getting these videos up, and I did say that I'd try to do one every single week, but being traveling the world, I actually have got to do quite a bit of training. Got to have a roll with Imanari, got to train at Wacka BJJ, Impact, Mabiro, Carp Diem today, and even probably some more. And yeah, it's been pretty cool. So Japan's been a whole heap of fun. Even got to do samurai meditate. That samurai cut the what is it? It's like tatami. It's like this rolled up flooring stuff they use. It's pretty sick. And meditate with the Buddhist monk, do some kintsugai, which is really cool. But yeah, anyway, back to what I really wanted to talk about today is the CLA versus the old school methods of training jiu-jitsu. And I wasn't really going to, but Greg Souders and Big Dan Manasoyu put up a really long kind of podcast the other day. I suppose that's really stirring up the pot. So if you're not really 100% sure what the CLA is and what drilling is, I'll just give you a quick explanation. Old school drilling is just like your typical class where you go in, do some shrimps, get warm, grab a partner, drill a few moves, and then have a couple of 5-minute rounds and go home. CLA is a little bit more, if you haven't looked into like Rob Gray's stuff and like how he learned to move and all that sort of thing, it is basically like you come into class, you partner up and you start playing games kind of thing. So it looks a little bit like positional sparring, but it's definitely not positional sparring. You've got very specific outcomes along each step of the way. And full disclosure here, I will just say that my favorite way of training is the CLA kind of way of training, simply because if you're coaching a class, the old school way of training it, if you're even slightly interested in jiu-jitsu, it's super easy. Basically, you waste so much time doing a warm-up and showing your favorite move. It's kind of basically a cheats way. Well, it's not a cheats way, but to me it feels like cheating. Whereas CLA, you actually have to take a real interest in what it takes for making grips, getting grips in the first place, destabilizing your training partner, inside position. Like, you really have to understand the game. You have to learn a whole lot more words and everything. So even as a coach, to me, but I'm a bit of a nerd, so I like that kind of thing. But I just wanted to say, full disclosure there. Also on that, the discussion that Big Dan and Greg had, even though it went for a long time and I listened to all of it, paid a lot of attention, I don't feel like it got anywhere. It didn't get anybody any closer to anything that they can actually use practically or which direction they should steer their training. But it did bring up a really important point. Whether you do CLA or old school, or whether your gym's got like a bit of a mix or whatever, and you've got different ideas in your head, it's not actually really that important, because what they're talking about is stuff for the pros, the guys that are doing specifically no-gi training, and they're competing at certain events, they're training for these events, and they're at the highest level. That, and what your average hobbyist or your average gym, or even somebody that is fairly serious about jiu-jitsu, their whole universe, I was going to say their worlds apart, but their universes apart. It's really, really different. What's actually going to make a difference for you? All right, I have spoken about this before, and I referred to it quite a few times as the tradesman's approach, but basically all I'm saying is you need to start taking ownership of your whole training experience. So right from, maybe you haven't started, so you could start now. You could take ownership now by even just like researching a few places in your area to train. But obviously, if you're watching this, you probably do train. What you need to do is, like, even like the little things like your personal hygiene and where you're at, with being honest to yourself with where you're at, like where you're getting stuck. When I've talked to people, they say, yeah, but I don't really know. Like, I don't know what I need to focus on. Most of the time when you go in and roll, you'll find you're getting stuck. Maybe you can't pass guard when people give you a certain sort of a guard. Maybe you're like getting stuck in half guard, or maybe getting stuck on the bottom side control, or whatever it is. The position or whatever it is or submission will keep on coming up. That's what you need to work on. So be disciplined and go, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look up 2 ways of getting out of side control from the bottom, and actively put yourself in those positions where you can practice getting out in the methods that you've chosen. It's probably going to be a bit awkward at sometimes, and you're probably going to be like, oh, I don't want to be in this position. But as you do it, you'll see noticeable improvement. So you'll always feel like you're moving forward, and you will be moving forward. So jiu-jitsu is going to be a lot more fun. It can even be as simple as choosing training partners. So asking somebody to roll with who you probably should, even just saying no to people that are a really bad fit for you. And you know those people you probably should say no to, but you probably don't. Yeah, so taking ownership of your training and then taking steps and action towards like those goals in your jiu-jitsu. And so I know what you're thinking. My coach says this, or my gym is doing things this way, and that's cool. There's some things that are outside of your control. However, there's a lot of things that are still inside your control. So take ownership of those things and keep working on those. Don't be distracted by the latest flashy move or the latest style of training or whatever else it is. I know if you're like me and you do like to geek out and watch them all, and it is pretty fun to watch these debates, and it is pretty fun to watch flying arm bars and other cool fancy moves. But if they are actually really good, they will work their way up to the highest levels and the best gyms, and then they will end up in competition, and then they filter their way back down, and then you and me get to actually use them to solve a problem that we're working on. So it happens organically. Anyway, that's just my thoughts, and I feel like it really helps, because when I think like that, it really helps me. If you've got any other ideas, drop them in the comments, and even if you just think this is crazy or you just want to join in the debate, drop them in the comments, and I'll see you on the next one. I'll make it happen next week.